Is the world a better place today? In a world where we WSDC people in international delegations get special meetings just to reassure us of our security, that we wouldn't get shot at during the tournament, does that answer the question of whether or not the world is a better place now? When thousands of people are dying in Iraq, when millions of people are displaced in Syria by a war which the United States of America is responsible for, when you and I, everyone in this room, is living in constant fear of a rogue ISIS radical killing us in our own hometown, we are more than proud to propose today. We told you that we should judge the debate on the consequences of Obama's policies, not what he could have done, but what the real actions of it were. The real-world implications of his policies are important in the Middle East, Asia, Europe, and how it affects us as a global citizen. The United States of America, we proved, and they conceded, is responsible for our security as much as they are for their own people. Now let's take opposition side for their best, where Obama's diplomacy and this democratic disengagement is the threshold for benefits. Firstly, they said that leaving Iraq was the most democratic thing that they could do. That in best case scenario, through this diplomacy, then what would happen would be that there would somehow be a democratically elected government, that the people there would enjoy human rights, that they are actually enjoying more human rights overall. Now, let's look at what we see in the newspapers today. Is that what actually happened? Was that the best outcome possible? We answer that today by telling you, firstly, the situation is much worse than what it was when Obama was still inside Iraq. By pulling out haphazardly, without using the economic and political strength to bring about better decisions, he has actually degraded the human rights within Iraq. Now, their point of global conflict is reduced. All right, you talk about how Obama has pushed for disarmament in a global community. But we told you that is not the case. We see them asking Japan to arm themselves as symptoms of the Cold War, where they're directly going against China through another nation. We see this rather counterproductive to what you have been saying. Now, on the final point, which was of the human rights issues, we've already told you that we should judge this debate on what is happening, that he had a policy, he tried to implement it, what were the outcomes? They just reached halfway in where the implementation process. They never really talked about the outcomes of it. They never really told us why millions of people suffering today is not as harmful as what they proposed. On the final note of global warming, the reason that we said that it was not very significant was exactly what you pointed out. It was just a legacy move. Obama comes at the end of his administration, presumably brings China to the table. We don't really see this as a consequence. It doesn't really help global warming in the long run until we see these talks being furthered by Obama himself. Just bringing them to a table and asking them to sign a paper is not a very valid consequence. Now, you see, we told you that we set the stickyard as the consequences of what he did, of what his actions were. When you bring about the parliament, firstly, we see the parliament as the representatives of the people, and when the representatives of the people constantly do not support Obama, then we see this as his failure in his policies. Now, secondly, when we talk about the consequences of his action, you never really talked about what happened under your model, what would happen. Because of this, because we were able to prove to you what is in status quo, and because it was wrong, and we provided to you alternatives, we win this debate.